Imagine walking into a courtroom, not just as a spectator, but as someone whose very identity is on trial. Because in the case of United States v. Skrmetti, this is exactly what's happening. The question before the highest court in America isn't just about laws or medical treatments, it's about who Americans are allowed to be. In the heart of this trial lies a child, a teenager, a family. Not a statistic, not a ballot argument, a human being. And for that child, the stakes could not be higher. Because what is being challenged is not only medical care, but the freedom to exist in your own skin, to live as you are, to claim your truth in a society that says maybe you cannot. This is not distant, it's here, it is now. The law in question bans certain medical treatments, puberty blockers, hormone therapy, for minors whose gender identity does not align with their sex assigned at birth. On its face, it is a medical statute, but under its surface, it represents a broader conflict: identity versus state, rights versus restriction, voice versus silence. Families sit in the courtroom gallery, watching their children's futures hang in the balance. Doctors testify about well-established standards of care. Experts debate what science says, what medicine recommends, what compassion demands. And on the other side, legislators argue state interest, protection, and what they define as normal or allowed. In this courtroom, the viewer isn't just curious. They're invested. They know someone like that. Maybe a sibling, a child, a friend, or maybe they are that someone. The emotions here are raw: fear, hope, anger, relief, despair. When a child's voice trembles in the witness stand, when parents fight tears, when doctors explain how lives change, those moments don't stay off camera. They ripple across phones, across feeds, across screens. The trial becomes a battleground for social order. Because the verdict will not only decide whether certain treatments are allowed, it will decide whether a segment of Americans have the right to be themselves under the law. It will define the meaning of equality, protection, and dignity in the 21st century. When the justices debate whether the law discriminates based on sex or whether it is simply a state regulation of medicine, the outcome feels abstract. But for those in the gallery and millions watching online, it is deeply personal. It's the difference between living free and living confined, between being seen and being erased. When the majority opinion announces that the ban does not violate the Equal Protection Clause, the shock is palpable. When dissent warns about the consequences for sex-based rights, the ripple extends far beyond one case. Because rights lost in one domain often erode others. What happens here could impact not just transgender minors, but anyone whose rights hinge on protections against discrimination. This trial raises more than one question: who gets to define identity? Who decides treatment for a child? What does the state owe each individual? And what happens when the law chooses categories, sex, identity, age, to determine what is allowed and what is forbidden? At the heart of the courtroom are characters. There's the teenager, whose courage to stand and speak echoes far beyond the benches. There's the parent, torn between love and fear, navigating a world that questions their child's worth. There's the doctor, whose oath compels them to stand for care even when politics interferes. And there's the state, wielding power, claiming responsibility, shaping the boundaries of citizenship. And there are the viewers, millions of them, watching, commenting, sharing, because this isn't some distant policy debate. It's about humanity. It's about identity. It's about the future. In this trial, the drama is undeniable. There are hidden documents, medical studies, conflicting testimony, silent tears, angry outbursts, and the echo of what might become precedent. The pacing is cinematic: a teenager's story, then the statute, then expert witness, then closing arguments, then the chamber's hush as the justices deliberate. The tension is real. But beyond the tension lies hope. Hope that rights will be upheld, that dignity will be recognized. That America, in this courtroom, will say, you are allowed to be who you are. You are protected, you are equal, because if the court says otherwise, what message will that send? That freedom can be limited, that identity can be regulated, that some lives matter less. That is not just a legal matter. It is a cultural one, a moral one, a human one. And this is why the world is watching, because what happens in this case will echo across states, across classrooms, across doctors' offices, across lives. The shape of rights and identity in America is being carved here. Imagine the teenager walking out of the courtroom. What will they feel? Relief, uncertainty, fear. Will they still have the care they need? Will their school still support them? Will their home still be safe? Will the law still recognize them as they see themselves? Will America recognize them? Because this trial, above all, is deciding who Americans are allowed to be not just in law, but in their hearts, in their homes, and in the light of society. And when the verdict comes, millions will not just hear paper hitting the bench. They will feel the weight of what it means. The trial deciding who Americans are allowed to be is more than a headline. It is a turning point. It is a mirror of who we are and who we will become.